Last night, always the case where I'm a bit of an insomniac, right? No worries. Couple of Java House Colombians peeling pod. And I'm good to go. I got the Java House Wrangler energy drink today as well. You can get all of that at Jake25, the discount code, or use the fan bundle at javahouse.com. But
you're loading up over there.
Coffee
and energy?
Energy is to go after the coffee here. But there was so much to get to last night. And preparing for today, I was concerned because I was watching the forecast and I saw that even though the weather has been mild still, it's about to get really cold, and I wanted to make sure that Eddie made it back okay from LaPorte yesterday. You did make it back, obviously, right?
I did, yes.
Everything go okay?
Unfortunately, didn't get the part.
Really?
No.
Guy with a bigger head than you?
Yes.
So you got the email from the Big Head Association about the tryouts for the 8 5/8 head model is what they were calling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can be dicey. And then you went up there, and how many photos did they take of your cranium?
Well, they had to measure the cranium first.
Oh.
So they have to measure everyone who was there.
Okay.
And then you have to make a certain quota. I can't remember what the number was, but I didn't make the cut. So I took the entire date off, went up to LaPorte, Indiana for no reason.
A lot of egos up there?
Oh, my gosh. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, people with big heads like that, I can imagine, right? It's
yeah.
part of the Big Head Association. All right, so Eddie is back, and yesterday it was a humdinger. Yesterday was, and I appreciate everybody that called in the show as well when we were talking about the Colts situation. And let me begin with this. There are a couple of storylines, obviously, that we are going to monitor over the course of today, one of which we probably won't get any definitive answers for some time. As a matter of fact, we have the grace, if you will, or the ability to wait on this, and that I'm talking about Stephen Daly. Yesterday you heard JMV mention it, the fabulous pass rusher for Indiana University that was a transfer from Kent State. And he did, there is video, after the game, and it was innocuous. It was not like, he was going around and talking to someone in the stands at Lucas Oil Stadium and reaching up just to kind of jump up and give him a 5 in celebration after the Big Ten championship, and very innocently and oddly landed awkwardly on his right knee, and it looks like he may be out for the rest of the playoff. We will keep an eye on that. As a matter of fact, we're going to get out to Bloomington because Mike Nizilik, our friend from the Bloomington Herald-Times, is going to join us. Not only do we have that to talk about, but Lamar Wilkerson last night, a historic night at Assembly Hall. Historic, literally. Not just for opponent, but for IU as well. All-time scoring record within Assembly Hall. I was there when Sean Respert scored 42 in a game. Trace Jackson Davis had broken that with 43. Last night, Lamar Wilkerson does one better. 44-point night last night for Indiana as they trounce Penn State. We can get to that. We'll talk a little Pacers as well. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that is kind of their Mr. Hustle Award going to join us just about 25 minutes from now. He is a guy we talked about yesterday with Scott Agnes, Ethan Thompson, that was signed and now all of a sudden is like in rotation and is in the game late and is making plays. And a lot I love about Ethan Thompson. He's going to join us coming up within 30 minutes. But let's get right to what has taken place within the last half hour on West 56th Street and what was the big story yesterday. It was around this time yesterday, maybe an hour after that, when we got the news that Phillip Rivers, at the age of 44, would be rejoining the Colts and would be signed to the Colts practice squad after the workout that he had on Sunday night. There's a little bit more explanation, a little more clarity on this. Shane Steichen just got done talking with the local media, and so I want to bring this to you right away. This is Shane Steichen in terms of the timeline, the events that leads Phillip Rivers, who had played for Steichen in the Chargers system before coming here. He never was with Steichen in Indianapolis. He was with Frank Reich, but he knows Chris Ballard obviously does Phillip Rivers. So there is relationship and familiarity all over the place. His key card still works, if you will, over on West 56th. But Shane Steichen, please elaborate for all of us on how this came to be.
All right, I'll start off. As you guys know, signed Phillip Rivers to the practice squad. Super excited for him. His passion and his obsession for the game is unmatched. For him to come back and want to do this at 44 years old, I think is incredible. And I know he's going to give everything to this organization that he has. Sunday after the game, when Daniel went down and then we found out about Riley's knee, we're kind of like, hey, what are we going to do? And me and Chris were talking. We're like, hey, let's call Philip, see what he says. Called him Sunday night. We said, hey, what do you think? He said, heck yeah, I'm interested. Heck yeah. And so he slept on it. I said, sleep on it. And then Monday, called him back Monday morning. He said, I need to get up there. I need to get up there and throw, get in that building, start moving around. So he came in here, threw. He didn't forget how to throw a football. So we did that Monday, and then Tuesday, he was in the hotel thinking it over. He called us. Me and Chris were in the office. Said, what do you think? He said, dadgummit, let's freaking go.
So, Philip Rivers in. He has talked to the local media. We will play a little bit of that over the course of today, done so via a conference call essentially. But one of the things that he talked about was his playing weight is heavier than when he last played 5 years ago, January 9th, 2021, the last time that he was on a football field. It was in Buffalo. He had a year that led the Colts to an 11-5 record. I think there was a lot of discussion of let's try to bring him back for a second year. It was Rivers, I think, that decided no, enough was enough. But he had commented on the fact that, yes, he has gained weight, but at the same time he said, look, it's not like I was a speed demon anyway. So here is a guy that knows the system. And I mentioned this yesterday. Rivers, in his retirement, has been coaching high school football, notably coaching his son's team. He has a number of children, we know that, but one of them, he's coaching the high school football team. And the offense and the scheme that he runs is similar to that of Shane Steichen's. So in that vein, they have had regular conversation, Shane Steichen and Philip Rivers. They have always stayed in touch with one another. I think it is fair to say that the reports are accurate that the Colts did reach out to other quarterbacks as well. Philip Rivers may not have even been their first call. I think Derek Carr is one that they reached out to. Certainly, I would assume that Andrew Luck, they at least kicked the tires. He's under contract. If he ever were to return to the NFL, it would be to the Colts because contractually they own those rights, I believe, still. But having said all of that, last night, and I don't want to speak for him, but I'm going to. I hope he's okay with me sharing this. We did the annual Robin Miller, Friends of Robin Miller, David Benner, John Banch dinner at Iria's with all the guys from the Indianapolis Star. And it was another awesome year. It was another honor to be there and to be, I'm the smallest speck. To say that I worked for the Star in capacity with those others is a real stretch, but they invite me nonetheless, and it's a great honor. But obviously the Philip Rivers discussion was a major talking point. And Chap was saying, all of us were throwing this out there. I'm not saying he was definitively saying it, but there was discussion and speculation. Eddie, I will allow you to elaborate on what you think of this as to the possibility that what we will see on Sunday is that the Colts will look at it and go, Seattle is a flat-out nasty defense. And I'm not saying Jacksonville and Houston don't have good defenses or San Francisco, but Seattle, in terms of their aggressiveness of getting to the quarterback, their rush, they are top 5 in the NFL in sacks. Does Shane Steichen sit down with Chris Ballard and Philip Rivers and say, look, you are our guy. Philip Rivers, you're the guy that we think can get us into the playoffs. And that's what this is. They believe that their best chance of continuing forward, and yesterday I was throwing out different speculations as to what led to this, because that's literally, it was happening on the fly while we were on the air. Now that I've had a chance to step back, talk to people, read, analyze, I believe that the Colts believe not about job-saving mode, not about face-saving mode, but rather they believe with 4 games remaining that A, they need to win 2. 2 of the 4. 3 would be ideal, but 2 they think would give them a real chance, especially if those 2 are against Jacksonville and Houston. If they win those 2 games, they believe they're in the postseason. And they, meaning the Colts brass, believe that a veteran quarterback gives them the best chance to do that, and that veteran is Philip Rivers. Now, it is my belief, not fact, but my belief of the possibility, and this was discussed last night, and Chap brought it up. It was his Chap was throwing out, as we all were, just different ideas. So I'm not saying that Mike Chappell said, I talked to somebody, here's what's going to happen. But if he were on the air, I think this is what he would say. The possibility that Brett Rippon starts against Seattle, you give Rivers one more week to, even though he knows the system, you give Rivers one more week to reacclimate, to readjust, and then you bring him in against San Francisco and you try to get 2 or 3 of those last games. That possibility, I think, is on the table. But Shane Steichen did elaborate, although succinct, on where things stand right now about Phillip Rivers and the possibility that he does start in the Pacific Northwest on Sunday.
Yeah, we're going to go through this week of practice, see how it goes, and then we'll make a decision at the end of the week probably. So we're going to get him through practice.
Okay, so that's where things are. It would not surprise. I think that the assumption, naturally speaking, and I understand the assumption, naturally speaking, the assumption would be, okay, so if they've signed him, that's their guy. That's their guy. They signed him, and they're. It may be San Francisco before then, but I am 100% certain of this, and I think JMV said this yesterday. I totally agree with it. Phillip Rivers, at the age of 44, is not boarding a plane to come to Indianapolis to be Don Strock, right? Like, he's not coming to hold a clipboard and be on the practice squad and give tutorial. The question becomes, what can he do at the age of 44? One of the factors you have to think about. Take Andrew Luck. I mean, probably terrible example because around here, that's a buzzword. I get it. Take Colin Kaepernick, who's 38. Derek Carr probably is more in the Phillip Rivers category. But Phillip Rivers, to the point that he just made earlier, and it's a great point, Phillip Rivers is not a guy that was winning games or extending plays or beating teams by being mobile. He's been a guy that's been statuesque from the get-go. So when it comes to, for a lot of athletes, when they try to make a comeback or if they're coming back off injury, there is an element of having to readjust and reacclimate their game because now their ability is limited and the thing that they used to do naturally is taken away, and oh gosh, now I've got to find another way to be effective. And for Phillip Rivers, that would not be the case. The things in which made him the things for which he was most effective, getting the football with precision timing in shorter routes and knowing when to, making the right decision of knowing when to throw the ball away. Now, he was having to do that before, but he was also not yet 40. He's now 44 years old. Well, he would have been 40, right at 40, I guess. But point being, when you turn 40, it slows down drastically. And certainly at 45, unbelievably drastically. Now, he hasn't hit 45 yet. But the motions, the visions, the decisions that he's going to have to make by being in the pocket and not being able to move around a lot are the exact same as the last time he played. There is not really an adjustment to mindset because of a declined athleticism, because there wasn't a lot of athleticism there to begin with. One of the things that yesterday was brought up that I think also needs to be explored or looked at, and that is what happens to the Colts in terms of their offensive game plan of Alec Pierce as your deep ball threat and Michael Pittman, from 20 yards across the middle. I think Josh Downs and Tyler Warren in particular become very important because Phillip Rivers was not a long ball thrower to begin with. Now, long ball thrower, not there, plus rust on the shoulder. I mean, essentially. So it changes things a little bit. And it will be an intriguing storyline to see how much their game plan changes. Bottom line is this. Eddie, you tell me if you agree on this. I brought up yesterday the point of Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins, when Peyton Manning had the neck issue that left him out for his final year and, of course, ended his career here, at first we didn't know the length or the severity of Manning's injury. And then, John was the one that reported, like, hey, this is worse than was thought. And then, like a week later, I learned he is definitively out for the year and declared him out for the year. And John and I actually, it's funny because we were on two different stations going head-to-head, and we actually a couple of times collaborated, not of information, but just like, man, we are going to be proven right on this, right? Because we both were kind of reporting from the same thing of two different, he was the first one to say, this Manning's got a neck problem, and it's a problem.
Yep.
And then I came on after that, like a couple of days later, and I, at some point, when I'm old and have a couple of marbles loose, I'll confide in how I found this out because it was pretty unbelievable. But I definitively knew he's out for the year and came on and said, I can tell you right now, Peyton Manning will not play this year. But at that time, Kerry Collins was the answer. It was like, well, they have Kerry Collins, the big arm quarterback, guy that, familiarity with Bill Polian. And so there was the, and they made the T-shirts, calm down and carry on, Kerry. And Kerry Collins went out there, and after one drive, it was like, oh, my gosh. It wasn't Scott Tolzien level disaster, but it was close. And you could tell right away, this guy is done. Put a fork in it. It is done. And he picked up a guitar, and he moved back to Nashville, and he sat on his porch and basically did Cracker Barrel ads for 17 weeks and collected a paycheck because he could not play. Now, in this scenario, one of the intriguing storylines is going to be, which is it? Because this is going to go one of two ways. This is either going to be Kerry Collins, and immediately we're going to go, yeah, that did not work at all. Or we're going to say, holy cow. Because there are weapons, Eddie. Would you agree? There are weapons there for Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and you're going to probably have to utilize Jonathan Taylor more in the passing game. Whether that's screens, whether that's, swing out passes in some capacity.
And in the running game, it goes without saying.
Yeah, you're going to have to actually run the ball early in the game versus what they had been doing with Daniel Jones and throwing to score and then running to win. You're going to have to run the ball early to set up the play action to kind of offset some of that pass rush, no matter who the opponent is, but especially with Seattle this weekend, to buy some time for the 44-year-old guy who hasn't played football in 5 years. Jake, it's like he's got to get back into that quick level processing of being able to look at a defense and have an understanding on what's being presented and where his mismatch is. And so it's going to be very, very important for the Colts to lean on Jonathan Taylor with or without Phillip Rivers, because even with Brett Rippon or even Riley Leonard, they need Jonathan Taylor to help open things up in the pass game for whomever is at quarterback.
Yeah, I think the running game in particular, Taylor, the difficulty and the ease of it is this. It's easy to say, well, just hand off to Jonathan Taylor and just kind of ride that, unless a defensive front four like Seattle, for example, knows that that's exactly what you're going to do, right? And so if they just load up the box, then you've got to try to soften that up. And typically the way you do that is with, obviously, the more intermediate or longer ball. If Phillip Rivers can't do that, then becomes the challenge. You know what I mean? I mean, that becomes the issue that they're going to have to work out. So Phillip Rivers apparently did just get done speaking to the local media. Kevin Bowen has posted that. And I'm not sure. I think what he was talking about was just his overall weight. Do we have that audio by chance, Eddie? Here is Phillip Rivers talking with, and I think he's talking about just where he is right now physically. But again, this was just a couple of minutes ago. This is courtesy of Kevin Bowen, our Kevin Bowen from the Fan Morning Show on social media, Phillip Rivers.
As simple as can be is a coach that I love and an organization that I really enjoyed being with. Mr. Irsay believing in me in that year in 2020 when it didn't go so good in 2019. And shoot, the teammates that I were able to play with, 14 of them are still here. Training room's the same. PR guys are the same. Equipment room's the same. And they wanted me. And, I try to keep it as simple as that. And, a game I love to play. a game that I thought I was done playing. Certainly, I wasn't really hanging on to any hope of playing again. I kind of thought that ship had sailed, but something about it excited me, and it's kind of one of those deals. The door opens, and you can either walk through it and find out if you can do it, or run from it. And I know that there's risk involved, obviously, of what may or may not happen. But the only way to find out is going for it. And I just felt almost like it was a gift, another opportunity to play and cut it loose with your guys in the game you love to play, and the dream that you got to live. You may get some bonus time. So I really kept it as simple as that in my mind, and here I stand.
So that was Philip Rivers. I get it. You know, if it's in the back of your mind, I do think that in one of the things, you know, I made mention of it yesterday. This wasn't like they called him and he was Lou Brown. I mean, I joked about it yesterday, right? I got a guy on the other line about a couple of white walls. It wasn't that per se. One of the advantages, and this is going to sound ridiculous, admittedly, one of the advantages, and I'm using air quotes to an extent, of getting a guy who has been coaching at the high school level. There is no comparison, none, between watching high school practices and getting out and playing on an NFL field. There is no comparison to getting up in the morning and running up and down the field. I mean, you know, you see coaches, right? I mean, they can put on weight, and Philip Rivers has put on weight, whatever. But it means that he is still involved, physically speaking, in doing stuff regularly. It's not, this guy's not sitting on the couch, retired, and hasn't picked up a football in 5 years. Clearly, at the very least, he has range of motion of some sort. But 44 years old, I mean, we'll see. We will see. Eddie, were you surprised when you heard yesterday the news?
I was shocked. I was like, really? There's guys that have played more recently that I thought they would have called. Like Derek Carr's a good example. Ryan Tannehill's another one of those guys that recently played. I was a little shocked that they would go down the well of a guy who hasn't played in 5 years. But I also go back to this. It was just 2 years ago. I forget who it was in the Super Bowl that was going to sign Philip Rivers if they needed a quarterback. I can't remember. Was it San Francisco? Was it here when Brock Purdy went down? And
might have been right.
Christian McCaffrey's their emergency
quarterback. I think a big
quarterback?
part of that, Eddie, is the fact that he is not a quarterback that was reliant on his mobility to begin with, even from the beginning, right? You know, he's just kind of he's Uncle Rico. He stands there and just kind of sidearm slings it all over the place. The first time that I saw Philip Rivers play, first time I'd ever seen him, I'm working at Channel 6. Dave First is working with me. Dave goes, "You want to go to the IU game this weekend?" Okay. Now, this is this is to show you how long ago it was. It was like Land of the Lost. We got in a little canoe, and we went down a river and through a cave and went right back into, this is how long ago it was. It was so long ago that IU football could not have been more irrelevant. Dave and I left at like 11 a.m., and we were in the Memorial Stadium parking lot by 11:50. And they gave us vouchers for free hot dogs because they were so thrilled that people came down from Indianapolis to see Indiana football. And I'm like, well, who are they playing? Dave goes, well, they're playing NC State, and that's why, you know, I used to work in Raleigh, so it'd be kind of cool to see NC State. Okay, let's go. So we go in there, and there were two players in that game that jumped out at me. It was like, holy cow, these guys are good. One of them was Torrey Holt. He was either Torrey Holt or Torrey Holt's brother. I can't remember which one. But the other one was the freshman quarterback. We're like, who is this guy? Some freshman from New Jersey, but he sounds like he's from North Carolina. And he threw for like 450 yards, and it was Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers, this guy was throwing it all over the place and racked up huge numbers. But, and this would have been 18-year-old Philip Rivers, 19-year-old Philip Rivers. But he was not mobile. Even then, he just stood there almost statuesque, slinging the ball around. And that's what they're going to have to hope for. They're going to have to hope that he can still go out there, throw the ball around, and not have to rely on his mobility. But we will explore it over the course of today. Do they wait a week before we see Philip Rivers on the field? One of the things that we will keep up on. Also, a guy that I wanted to know the challenges of how much it comes back to you if you try to come back as an NFL quarterback. And so I thought, who better in this town to reach out to that would know, because he did it a couple of times and did so upon retirement. Jeff George is going to join me coming up about 35 minutes from now to add some perspective and also to talk about some very cool stuff that he has going on during Christmas time. But, Eddie, you dipped into your Rolodex. You heard me mentioning this guy yesterday, even, with that cranium of yours at the Big Head Association. You might have been tuned in. I did talk about a Pacer player that has impressed me of late, right?
Yep. Yeah, I did. I can't even speak today. I did dig into the Rolodex a little bit. Ethan Thompson joining us. Just don't know the exact time yet. I know he will join us within the hour, though.
Okay, within the hour.
Within the hour,
okay,
yes.
Ethan Thompson, newest Pacer, going to join us sometime between now and 1 o'clock. Jeff George, 1 o'clock as well. I mentioned Indiana football. They may be having to, speak of the Rolodex, go into their depth chart on defensive line, and we'll talk about what happened last night on the basketball side of things. Mike Neislet going to join us coming up at 2:15. Joel A. Erickson going to join us at 2:30 today. Loaded one today on a Hump Day Wednesday here on The Fan. this. I thought for certain. Somebody help me out here, because there are little things sometimes, little nuggets that pop into my brain, and I'm like, I know I did not dream this. I am certain that at some point Phillip Rivers had some sort of a connection to the state of New Jersey. I know that he had like high school in Alabama, or his dad had coached in Alabama. But when he was at NC State, I am certain that Phillip Rivers, there was some sort of connection where he had played in high school or done something in this, like that he had connection to the state of New Jersey. And that's why people were like, why does this guy talk like this? He's from New Jersey. Maybe I dreamt that entirely, but I do know this. Speaking of New Jerseys, he has one here. He will be number, Eddie, do you happen to have the breaking news sounder? Not necessarily breaking news, but Phillip Rivers will wear his old number 17. So Daniel Jones said, you know what? Have at.
Could you say he was grandfathered in?
Go ahead and hit yourself with that, Eddie. Go ahead. Well played.
Thank you.
Well played.
Thank you.
Now, I mentioned going to that NC State-Indiana game. And I'm looking here. I'm telling you, Phillip Rivers it was a complete shootout between Indiana and North Carolina State. And Phillip Rivers, I believe, was a rookie, or a freshman. 31 of 52 for 401 yards and 5 touchdowns. He threw for in that game against Indiana in Bloomington. And we just sat there like, holy cow, man. Who is this guy? But he was not overly mobile. He was not. Pacers side of things. Let's get to that, because Ethan Thompson is going to join us at some point. I've mentioned empty calorie guys. New term I came up with. And when you go back and you look, because I talk a lot about precedent, right? One of the things when it comes to precedent to me that I go back to is the times and the periods for the Pacers franchise where you have seen that they basically have had to go out and just fill out their roster or put guys on the floor. The post-brawl era is, of course, the poster child in this town of the kind of thing I'm talking about. And if you look right after the brawl, and I know that that's a long time ago, but after that period, and yes, Rick Carlisle was a part of that, so I mean he helped navigate through all of that. But you had guys like Britton Johnson and Maceo Baston and Ike Diagu, and a lot of these guys you're looking at and you're going, okay, so this guy, boy, this is a nice player here. I like this guy. And then you find out as they then transitioned into a new era and made new draft picks and rebuilt a roster. They make the trade and they got what they could, and they bring in Dunleavy and Troy Murphy, and they had to kind of reinvent themselves. But you realize that there were certain players that you thought were good players, but they were just out there because they were empty calorie guys. They needed somebody to just eat up minutes without giving you a lot for it in return, so to speak. And this year's roster, probably they are analyzing and assessing exactly who those guys may be. Ray J. Dennis, at the beginning of the year, gave them some minutes. He was okay. And then, because when it comes to the 10-day contracts, you can only go so many consecutive 10-day contracts. And in the case of Ray J. Dennis, eventually they moved on from that. Now,
he was on a two-way.
Correct. But he was on a two-way, but there was somebody, and I'm trying to think of which one it was, that they had signed to a 10-day contract. They got to the point where they reached the maximum of 10-day contracts they could sign them to, and so then they went ahead and gave them like a two-way deal, which made Ray J. Dennis expendable. It might have been Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
No, they signed Ethan Thompson and waived Ray J. Dennis.
Was it Ethan Thompson?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Either way, there's all kinds of Ray J. Dennis was one that I thought you looked at it and you go, okay, he's okay.
They let Monte Morris go when they signed Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Okay. But when you look right now, some of those names you've just mentioned, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, okay, Garrison Matthews, Morris that you just mentioned, Ray J. Dennis. Now, kind of the latest within that mix is Ethan Thompson. And when you see a guy like that, you look at it and you say, okay, are they analyzing this because this is a guy that can play or an empty calories guy? When I watched him, and this is why I was impressed by him and why I wanted to have him on the show, here's a guy that is a big-time recruit. And I get it. Most people listening are probably like, I'm not familiar with Ethan Thompson. A big-time, basically 5-star level, 4-star level, top 100 recruit, big-time player. Signs with Oregon State. Plays at Oregon State, leaves there 5 years ago, has bounced around since. But there are players in the NBA. You look at it in the NFL. There are players in the NFL that are playing on a roster that are their role is totally different than anything they've had to do the entire time that they've been growing up, and now all of a sudden they've got to reinvent what it is that they do and who it is that they are. And one of the things about the NBA to me that always jumps out, and I say this every time I go to the games and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking it the whole time. And I oftentimes will say to the person next to me, every single player on that floor, every one of them, even the empty calorie guys, even the guys that you're like, who is this guy that just came in and checked in for 9 minutes for the New Orleans Pelicans? Every player that you see in the NBA is the greatest player in the history of their high school and the community where they grew up. Unless, of course, they went to, sure, there are examples that you can give of like, well, Steve Downing played in the NBA for a year and Jake, he played with George McGinnis, so it wouldn't be him. Okay, but people still talk about McGinnis and Downing. Any player that you talk about, you look at it and you say, that guy for his entire life, in 95% of the games he's been in, has been the guy.
Fun fact, Scotty Barnes and Cade Cunningham on the same high school team.
Were they really?
Yes.
So you can imagine. There are people right now in a bar somewhere that are saying, man, I'll never, I was a pretty good player, and then we had to go up and play against them.
Montverde Academy?
Okay. The one thing where this changes a little bit, and I'm going to get into how this is impacting college basketball as well. The one thing where it changes a little bit is the academies. I'm not talking about like IMG and Montverde where they're just going out now and getting the best players from across the country to come down there and play for them, and they're on the same team. I'm talking about somebody from a small town in Minnesota, and it's like, yeah, this guy came through my town and averaged 38 a game, and now he's in the NBA. But if you look in this town, who are the most legendary players that people still talk about? Last night when I'm at the dinner at Iria's, one of the topics that came up is like, who are the Mount Rushmore of Indiana high school basketball players? And in this town, in Indianapolis, of the last 25 years, probably the big three would be people still sit around and talk about. When they saw Eric Gordon play, when they saw Greg Oden play, when they saw Mike Conley play, when they saw Rodney Carney play.
Jeff Teague.
And Jeff Teague was one, not unlike Rodney Carney, that wasn't even like in the mainstream, right? He wasn't even in the main conversation at the time. He was kind of a late bloomer. But either way, guys that played with those guys are like, yeah, that's the best player I've ever seen. It was very clear.
And if you want to go even more recent, Trace Jackson Davis, Kyle Guy.
Correct, and both of them are fringe NBA players, right? And they're
Romeo
legendary
Langford.
players everywhere they've been. So what the point I'm getting at is what I want to talk to Ethan Thompson about. I'm watching the game the other night, and late in the game against Sacramento, Sacramento had cut that lead down to 2. The Pacers had 3 straight possessions where possessions were kept alive because of Ethan Thompson keeping a ball alive with strictly hustle plays and out hustling guys to loose balls and loose rebounds. And I'm watching it saying to myself, that's a guy that for the majority of his career has been the one that was not the auxiliary role player, but the mainline player. Now he's having to be the auxiliary role player. And some guys can figure that out, and some guys struggle with it. And the ones that figure it out manage to stick around. And is that something that's going to help him stick around? I'll ask him exactly that. And then Jeff George, in terms of just the perspectives of a quarterback at the age of 44 for the Colts, what we can look for from Phillip Rivers, and some good stuff Jeff's doing for Christmas. That conversation coming up in about 18 minutes. Eddie, how was the drive to LaPorte yesterday?
Oh, it was just great, Jake.
Did you listen to the program during the drive? What did you listen to?
Well, I can't listen to the program. I don't get the signal.
You know, they have an app that you can use for that.
Yeah, I know.
It's 2025. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, there's that. Eddie, again, yesterday was up for the Big Head Association in the cranium modeling, right? For big hats?
Yeah, like I told you on the top.
So I found out more about this, not to cut you off, but I didn't know this, and I don't know if they told you this. Remember a couple of years ago, there was this craze of literally the big hats, the big oversized hats.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was such a thing, right? And sales really slowed for that. And my understanding is sales slowed for it because once the gimmick of that was done, people were like, okay, it was the gag was kind of up after a while. And then they realized they had all of these big, huge hats. And they thought, well, we could sell them to people that have abnormally large heads and get rid of our surplus. And so they needed models that wore an 8 5/8 hat. And I guess because you're in the Big Head Association, you got the email notification of the possibility of going up to model for it, correct?
Yeah, I got an email saying, hey, calling all big heads out there.
Yeah. So you drove up to LaPorte. I have no idea. Did they say why they picked LaPorte as the photo studio to do this?
I didn't ask questions. I was just honored to be a part of that committee.
So you show up, and how many people were there to audition for this?
It was a good amount of people, Jake. I think there was like 30 to 50.
The egos in that room because, of course, the Big Head Association. So you get there and...
Well, we couldn't be in a room, Jake, because all of our heads took up the entire room. So
I could
this
see
had to
that.
be outside.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get there, and then did they just say to you, okay, take a number? Or did you, by the time you got there, did they say, oh, you know what, we actually have discovered the guy that is this is the perfect, like, cranium that we're looking for? I mean, how were you eliminated exactly?
So it's like for a marathon, or if you were checking in for the drumstick dash, on Thanksgiving, you have to check in and get your number or whatever. So you get there, you check in. They're like, hey, what's your name? You give them your name or whatever. They're like, okay. And then they'll have you step aside, and then essentially they have like 3 people off to the side, and they start calling people up one by one. They start measuring your cranium, and then next thing you know, they take however many people. I think it was they took the top 10. Like they say, hey, we're taking the top 10 biggest heads to advance to the second round of the quote unquote screening process, and therefore I was cut off. I was not inside the top 10, unfortunately. Now, I don't know what the size was, and I don't know where I fell.
My understanding is the winner, Ray McKigney, was the winner of the modeling competition. Apparently a legend within the Large Cranium Association.
Never heard of him.
Big Head Association.
Do you think if I told them I'd do a radio show from noon to 3, they would have,
they would have
said
the rule? They would have said,
in?
well, we've heard about that show, and the guy that does it actually has probably the bigger head of the two of you.
Well, I was going to say, they need all the promotion they can get to get more people out there.
That's true. Well, apparently they don't need much because they had Ray McKigney found out about it and was able to become the big cranium model. So sorry that it didn't work out for you, but we'll see if you get another opportunity. Last night, Assembly Hall. I am almost embarrassed to admit this, but I had forgotten that Indiana plays last night. We mentioned it yesterday, but, I don't know if anybody else this happens to it, but you get off work and you run around and you're doing things. You're like, oh, gosh, that's right. Today's Tuesday. I thought it was Wednesday or, whatever. So the reminder for me that Indiana was playing is I was sent a photo of Assembly Hall at the start of the game. Now, I don't know how it was as the game went on. And Indiana last night offensively, and this is what you are going to get when you have teams that are so reliant on the outside shot. And Indiana, I think we saw against Louisville, is one that does not have a lot of athleticism, but they can shoot the basketball. No question about that. And what did I tell you about Wilkerson? I said he is a lightning in a bottle kind of guy. And it reminds me a little bit of like Carson Edwards in the fact that when he gets hot, he gets super hot. And having said that, last night he got exactly that. But I was surprised, disappointed, but it's the reality of it. And this is going to be an unpopular opinion. Part of it I know is there's no students on campus. I get it. Part of it is I know that Indiana football is, getting all of the attention. I get it. Part of it is that Indiana has not had a lot of success as a basketball program in relation to where and who they think they are in the last 10 years. I get it. And there's a fatigue that goes into that. But seeing the sparse crowd at the beginning of the game last night, and it was a great performance for Indiana. But Indiana basketball is a blue blood. And I know that Purdue right now is the preeminent program. And Mackey is the place to be. And winning cures all. I get it. But it is my opinion that we are going to see even an increase in this. College basketball and the brand of college basketball is fading, not because college football, and look at college football right now. We're sitting here still discussing Notre Dame and the playoffs and everything else, and everybody's talking about the college football playoff. College basketball, I think, has been really, really impacted not only by NIL, but the one-and-done stuff because you had in the transfer portal. When Indiana was playing Kansas State, I'm listening to the pregame, and Don Fisher's doing the pregame introductions, and in doing so, he is literally, while he is listing off the roster for Kansas State, he is listing off for every single player, where their previous school was. Instead of, a 6'6" sophomore from Abilene, Kansas, it's, a 6'6" sophomore from Oklahoma State, from Elon, whatever. Because every player on that roster had transferred. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except for that when you are a diehard fan of a program, it becomes difficult to track, follow, support your program because it's like this revolving door of who it is that you're rooting for. But in addition to that, I think one of the things that really is hurting college basketball, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen in football, but in basketball in particular, the number of players now, and I see it all over the place. The number of people that are like, well, my son, in terms of high school, he's a 7th grader, and we're looking at which high school, but we like this one over that one because they more run the offense that he runs in basketball. And it's like, what? And that then parlays into kids that are transferring high schools with regularity and then going to the specified basketball academies, the Montverde, the IMG, the New Hamptons. And so the idea of
La Lumiere, is that another one?
La Lumiere is a big one. So the idea, no matter what state you're in, of, man, I can't wait to see the kid from Marion or the kid from Louisville Ballard or the kid from, whatever high school it might be once they get to the university that, normally that was a pipeline for, Kentucky or Louisville or Indiana or Kansas or whatever. Now, the mercenary level of it, and I don't blame the kids for it. I get it all, but I think it has just become so blurred for people to follow and so confusing for people to follow. In the days of, man, when Antoine Jobert is in his 7th year as a senior and Roy Tarpley's there and how good are they going to be when Richard Relford, if he gets his shot going, the non-familiarity with roster, with personnel is making it nearly impossible for people to keep track of it. Jeff George going to join us, possibly Ethan Thompson, Pacers as well next. This is the favorite band, at least one of them, of Jeff George, who's going to join us just a couple minutes from now. Fascinating story, Jeff George. You've heard me mention it before, and I thought he could give really good perspective, not just on the Phillip Rivers signing and, you know, the things that go into that, but also, in addition, some of the things that he's got going on for Christmas, because he's doing a new initiative, the Christmas quarterback. And I love the idea of it because I've got a love for Indy. And one thing that I know about Jeff is that he has – one of the things that people say to me, and I don't – this comes off the wrong way. It's not something that I grew up here. I know no other than like this town, right? And so – but I have a great love for Indy, and I do take it as a compliment when people that I talk to about the radio show will say, like, hey, I know how much you love Indianapolis, and I do. I've got a great love for this city and try to let that be known, just having grown up here. And one of the guys I know that has a huge love of Indianapolis, and I think people have been able to figure out over the course of this show that he is somebody that, I've developed a friendship with over the years, joins us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. And he's going to be known as the Christmas quarterback coming up. We'll get into exactly what that means and what that entails, but let me welcome Jeff George to the program. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jake. Always good to be on your show.
Well, I appreciate it. And we got a lot to get to here, and I'm sure you knew that this was one of the things that I wanted to discuss from the beginning. And that's this. I remember when your playing career was coming to an end and you had a couple of stops there in the end. I remember Seattle and Chicago come to mind where you were later in your career, right? And then Minnesota was another one that I believe you may have had a workout with or a tryout with some 5 years or so after your last game had been played. When you look at the situation right now with Phillip Rivers and the Colts, he's 44 years old. I'm curious, as somebody who I know was working out and keeping your arm in shape at that same age. And by the way, happy birthday. You just had a birthday the other day.
Yeah, 45.
That's right. Okay, so what was your reaction when you heard that Phillip Rivers is going to be back with the Colts?
I mean, my reaction was, where are my cleats and my football? I mean, let's go throw some routes.
I know.
You don't tease me that way, because I feel, you sign somebody that's kind of close to my age, and I'm thinking to myself, can I still do it? And I think I can. So I don't know. I mean, I was talking to I was on Fox, the morning news this morning, and I was jokingly, but then I got to thinking, I picked up my phone. I said, hey, it's Carly Ursay. She's calling me, wanting to know what kind of, asking me if I'm in shape. And I said, of course I'm in shape. Are you still at 56th Street? I know the drive really well, so I'll be there at 10 o'clock. But yeah, so it's crazy. To think 45 years old, 5 years out of the league, coaching your kids, high school football team, that's awesome. But really, with how many games left in the league? Four games left in the regular season.
Yep.
I mean, really, how much can you bring to the team that I know they need somebody, and I know there's not much, with trade deadline being over with. Not really sure, what you can do, but is that really going to help the team? Me, personally, I would concentrate on getting AR healthy, seeing what he can do, use this as a platform for him to see if he's going to be part of your program, part of the team, the next few years. And at the same time, help you get to the playoffs. And if I'm AR, I'm thinking, what a better situation for me to go out there and show that I can still play. And if it's not here in Indianapolis, I can, there's many teams out there that need quarterbacks. I can be a franchise guy. So, great for Phillip Rivers. I've been there. I understand. You still, if you get a call and you get a chance to, make, a couple million for 4 weeks, great, go do it. But if I'm the Colts, I don't see an upside to it, really. What can you bring? Because, in shape, there's a difference being in shape compared to football shape. Is my arm, it's not going to be starting quarterback ready. I haven't been, you can throw as much as you want, but game ready, that's a different situation. But I just don't, unless it's like just be a mentor to the young rookie, Raleigh Leonard, that's great too. But I would think that with 4 weeks left, if you're the head coach, you're Steichen, I'm the mentor. I'm mentoring this young quarterback. I've been with him all year. I don't know what, again, I'm not trying to put down Philip Rivers. I think it's great for him, but I just don't know what it adds to the team with 4 weeks left in the season.
Jeff, you would know, if you look back at the year, and I'm talking about maybe like the Seattle-Chicago times, right, when you were out there and you were a veteran player at that point and who had not been on the field for a while. As an NFL player and a guy that's thrown a gabillion passes for 1,000,000 yards and led the league in passing yardage for a year, but then having a little bit of time off and going back out onto a field, is it like riding a bike, or is the game moving faster than it is that you recall when you had last played it when you do that?
The game really never seemed fast. The toughest part was in my situation in Seattle and Chicago. If you want to continue playing, you're at one stop, and then the next year you might be somewhere else. And that's I just wanted to keep playing. I wanted to try and get on a playoff caliber team. And this is what they told me. We're bringing you in to, if we get to the playoffs and we have an injury, we got confidence in you that you've been there and you can just step right in. You played under a lot of offenses. We think you can learn the offense within a couple weeks. And I remember sitting down with Mike Holmgren when I went to Seattle, and that was kind of that situation. They had goals and dreams. They had a good team, and Matt Hasselbeck was their guy. And it wasn't a situation where I was going in competing with Matt. It was like, all right, if we able to get to the playoffs and Matt gets hurt, we got confidence in you. You've had 6-7 weeks to learn the offense. I think I went in there with 12 weeks to go in the season and learned the offense in a couple weeks, and I was ready. So if he went down, I was ready. So that's kind of what they brought me in for, for the playoff run if Matt went hurt. And it's kind of if Matt got hurt. And the same thing was with Chicago. It was I think I went in there right around a week before Thanksgiving when I was with the Bears. And who was the guy that Rex Grossman was their quarterback? He went down with a knee or an Achilles or something, a leg injury, and they had Chad Hutchinson at the time. And Lovie Smith was the coach, and he kind of brought me in the same time, same thing, and said, hey, we're going to try and make a playoff run. We got a great defense. Quarterback went down, but we need a veteran guy. We don't need you to play these first couple games, 2-3 games. We just need you to get ready physically, get in shape, get your arm ready. And if we are able to get in the playoffs and something happens to the guy that's playing right now, we feel confident in you that you can lead us the rest of the way. So, I guess that's what the situation here. But with 4 weeks with Philip, he's been here. I understand the friendship that he's had with Steichen when he was out in San Diego, when Philip was still playing in San Diego. I get all that and kind of knows the offense, but I'm telling you, the body's just at 45 and 5 years out. You can do all you want. I'm just not sure what that brings to the team. So I would focus on Raleigh Leonard. I would definitely focus. I don't know what AR's situation, how healthy he is, whether he can play or not, but I would make darn sure that I'm doing everything possible, trainers, doctors, and I imagine they are. But I would make darn sure to get him in there, because if he can play, that brings just a totally different element to the game. You're so used to Daniel Jones. Teams are preparing against that. Now you got to prepare against AR and what he brings to the table. That, to me, that's the route that you should go. But again, it's all about whether he's healthy or not.
Jeff George, my guest on the Jive House Peel and Port guest line. Before we get to Jeff, what you've got going on here in your post-playing career, one other thing about Philip Rivers, and that is, as a guy who has played this position and played it deep into your career, when he gets out there, and let's just say that they get him out there on Sunday against Seattle, okay, for the sake of the discussion, or they wait for San Francisco. But when he's out there, Phillip Rivers, what is it that Jeff George's trained eye is going to look for early on and say whether or not you can tell that he's comfortable or uncomfortable in his return?
Well, it's really just about, you never lose the football part of it, your mind. Your mind's stronger than ever. You know more than anybody out there. But me, is the physical part of it. It's kind of like with Daniel Jones when he dropped back and he planted, and you just knew that it was an Achilles right when you saw that. So me, I would be watching his pocket, how he moves in the pocket, his foot speed, how quick he is. You don't have to be real, like you're 25 again, but you do have to take care. You have to watch, your hamstrings, your groins, and your Achilles, and that kind of stuff. Just any type of little movement that that you're not comfortable with, that you're used to. I mean, wearing cleats is something that you're not used to. I mean, I remember going out, when I was trying to, contact myself, and I was running wind sprints on the field with cleats, and the first day I put cleats on, I could have swore I tore my calf because my body wasn't used to wearing cleats. Right. So little things like that you have to worry about. Everything else, the mind, the football, learning the offense. I mean, that's secondhand. You're going to know that. But it's just the physical part of it, man. I just don't know. That's tough because I've been through it. And, it takes more than just a couple weeks to figure out whether I'm ready or not. It's a whole year of training, off-season training, getting your different muscles, part of your body, getting used to being able to go out there day in and day out. Now, Sundays are easy. It's the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is when you're going to be hurting the most. Does my body recover like it used to from Monday, or after a game on Sunday? I'm ready to go on Monday. Well, now you're 40, you're in your 40s. I mean, it's going to take you 5 days just to feel decent enough to get back out there on Sunday after practicing Monday through Friday. So what I would look for is somebody that, to answer your question, is just his pocket presence, how he's moving in the pocket, and getting out of the pocket. Once, if you're getting pressured, it's not like you're going to have the luxury of just sitting back there making your reads and check, throwing the ball to X, Y, and Z, and they're not open. Where's my backs? Where's my check down? You get all that, but once the pocket collapses, can I get out of the pocket and make a play? And, once you make that sudden movement, I feel a little funny in my calf, my groin, my hamstring, my Achilles. That's what you start to worry about. So I'm not, he's definitely mentally he's prepared, but the physical part of it, I'm just not so sure of.
Jeff George is my guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. All right, Jeff, I'll present it this way, okay? For those that, and I think most people know now that you and I have known each other for a long time. But to know you for a long time, I knew you publicly and then later personally, okay? Now, you and I were talking recently about the show, because we watch all these, weird shows on, Landman and everything else, and Andy Griffith.
Oh, don't get me on Landman. I could talk all day on that. I can't wait for Sundays or Saturday night at midnight. I told you. So
it is pretty awesmy right?
Don't bother me. Don't bother me from midnight to 1:15 because I'm glued in. That's my new football adrenaline is Landman.
It is great, right? Now, and so Chad Powers, and I thought I was the only person that watched this show. I think you've watched it also, but Eddie has also watched it. But for those that don't know, Chad Powers is about a guy that was a quarterback that's looking for a second chance at revamping his career, and so he basically Mrs. Doubtfires himself. He goes kind of incognito and in disguise. The reason I mention it, Jeff, the playing career of Jeff George, the quarterback, the guy that played at Warren and broke a lot of hearts of other schools around Central Indiana, went to Purdue, and then, frankly, upset a lot of people when you transferred from Purdue, even though I understand it, the Leon Burtnett coaching change and the stylistic change of Fred Akers coming in and all of that. But the Jeff George that I knew as the quarterback was a private guy that did a lot of things privately that I didn't know at the time, that was raising money, that was helping families, that was involved with his family and his church. And now we're starting to see that publicly in terms of Jeff George being out there and finally kind of loving back Indianapolis and trying to get Indianapolis to get involved also and that reciprocal love. Why now? What's different now about Jeff George, if anything, in the initiatives of what we're going to talk about?
Well, I think when you're playing in the playing days, and the way I was brought up, I mean, I'm like you said, I am involved in my church. I try and live the right life, although I'm not perfect by no means. But when you're playing, you know, just the right thing to do is just go about your business, go about your job, and the private stuff, the raising money, that to me, that should, you know, it should not be advertised. And even to this day, I still have an issue with. I'm working through that, but it's not something you advertise. I'm not trying to promote, you know, be a better, you know, win people over. You know, you either like me or you don't, and that's fine. You know, earlier in your career, you try and do everything right. You want everybody to love you, and you want to go out there and win games. And if you win games, people are going to love you. But when it's the difficult times and you're losing and things going on, you just want to go about your business. Being an NFL quarterback, it takes up so much of your time. You don't have a lot of time to do other stuff. But at the same time, the time that you do have, you want to give back. And Indianapolis is so special to me. You know that. We talk about it all the time. And that's why, you know, I live here, you know, most of the time. I have, you know, houses other places. But here's home. Being a Hoosier, I'm proud to be a Hoosier. But at the time, I wasn't trying to promote myself, because that's not what you're supposed to do. There's so many people out there around the city and other places that do so much good for the city and community, that those are the people that really deserve all the credit. And you know, being a quarterback, you're given a platform, and you need to take advantage of that. And I didn't really take advantage of that when I was playing. I just wanted to do stuff privately, secretly, because that's who I am. But now that I'm out of football, and the more I think about it, I don't have that football platform like I used to, you know, being on TV, being recognized. So now I'm Chad Powers. Well, you're kind of a, you know, some people have no clue. Once you take that helmet off, they don't know who you are. So if I can kind of change a little bit and go out and do things that help, especially at Christmas time. And, you know, we did this last Saturday, we were able to sponsor 50 families, and each family got $500 to go shop at Walmart. And just seeing the impact that had on the families, on the kids, and being there, and the kids crying, and the mothers, the father, life what hasn't been good to them lately. For whatever reason, it's just life. And to be able to help and see the impact that it has on those families that just less fortunate, that just need a little helping hand, a little boost to get them back on track. If I'm able to do that and promote, if somebody sees my story and wants to help and donate and help 2 or 3 other families, then I feel like I'm obligated to do. I have to do that. You know, it's not the player, the quarterback trying to, you know, be somebody, you know, go out, you know, wherever you're going, you need cameras with you, advertising, hey, I'm here, I'm there, I'm doing this for charity. Those days are over. I didn't need the publicity, but now I need the publicity, not for me, but for those families that need a little help, need the boost. So I'm kind of just trying to help them, not help me, help them have a better Christmas. Let that kid or those kids wake up and you know, to 8, 9, 10 presents that they might not have been able to afford or to have. So that's kind of, I don't know if I'm explaining it that well enough, but that's kind of what I'm doing it for.
Well,
not for me, but for the families, to help publicize those families that need it more than anybody.
Jeff, to me, the thing I think that jumps out is this, okay? You know, ChristmasQB.com, by the way, and I'll get everybody the information on how they can do this. It's very simple. You can go to ChristmasQB.com and you can simply make a monetary donation, and that goes towards the goal of helping out 2,000 foster and vulnerable families here at Christmas, and just letting, notably, you know, kids have that special Christmas. And it's not even necessarily about making sure there's tons of gifts under the tree, but rather about having a family being able to wake up and together see that a community is there and that they are noticed and that they are seen. I think that is so important. And I was curious of this. I know in knowing you how much family means to you. You know, it's hard to talk to Jeff George and bring up, say, for example, your mom without hearing you get emotional about it and what that has meant to you and your brothers and your dad. How old were you when you realized, as all of us do, that the great childhood that you were afforded was not something that all families, fortunately, were able to have?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe just because you're not, probably in college when I started doing a little charity work, you really don't know what people's lives or how they're impacted or what they're going through until you actually dig deep into wanting to help out. So I didn't really, I just kind of thought everybody had the same kind of life as me, East Side kid, going to Washington Square, playing Little League baseball, all through, and going to junior high and high school. And I just kind of thought that's the way the life was, that everybody, and my mom and dad were great. My dad was a high school teacher, a coach, learned everything from him, not just about sports, but just about how to be a man, how to treat people, how to love. It's all about love. And then you have my mom that just, was the quarterback of the family that didn't walk by anybody without telling them that she loved them. We'd be downtown and we'd be walking by, homeless people sitting on the, in downtown, and she would go up to, homeless people and hug them. And we'd always say, Mom, why are you doing that? Why? And she just said, they, a hug or just to tell them that I love them might go a long way with them. And she genuinely, honestly meant that. So, I learned from my parents. I learned just how to love, how to show love for other people and how to give, be a giver. But I didn't realize that until I started getting involved with communities when I was in Champaign, Illinois, and doing things on Mondays and Tuesdays and going through the community and, serving. And, a lot of times, like you said, it's not monetary. A lot of times it's just being there, talking to people and, so how was your day today? Or what'd you do today? Or how can I help you? Or, did you watch the game on Saturday when I was in Illinois? Did you watch the game? You talked about the game and just being there and showing that you care. And then if you're able to help somebody, a family, monetary wise, then that's just a bonus. So to answer your question, I didn't realize it until probably college. But I had, and you and I talk about this all the time, and we had the best childhood. And that's kind of why I'm driven now. I want to make sure that experiences, those feelings that you and I have growing up, Stony Brook, Warren Central, North Central, wherever, Eastwood, that those kids have that same feeling when they wake up in the morning and when they're 25 years old, man, and they have that feeling of what we had when we were kids. I mean, that's all it is. That's all about. It's what it's just trying to make somebody feel better, feel like that there's something that they have, that they can wake up and look forward to the next morning. And that's kind of what the Christmas quarterback's about. Just helping each family, just, give them something that they haven't had in a long time. And if it's Christmas, we're trying to build, not just for Christmas, Christmas is special, but we want to try and get to 2,000 families within the next year and, be able to donate, $500,000 to those families. And just continue the process. I've been so blessed and fortunate in my life, and I think it's time that I really hit this hard. Like, this is my job. This is what I want to do. And wasn't able to do that obviously when you're playing, but now, how many landmans can I watch on Sunday? So I got to figure out, so what's that drive? What's that adrenaline for me? And that's this, and when you see families and you see those kids and you see the smiles and the tears of joy, not sad, it's tears of joy, knowing that I was able to just, help that one family and God willing, be able to help 2,000 families and hopefully more and just build a brand. I mean, that, to me, that's what it's all about.
Again, Jeff won't tell you this, but I will. Over $1 million for families over the last quarter century from Jeff George, and now partnering with local ministries, local groups, and you can get involved, be a Christmas quarterback. ChristmasQB.com is the website. That is ChristmasQB.com. Most of you on this radio station have my cell phone number. If there's ever a time where you think to yourself, I forgot to write that down, or tell me more about it, text me anytime, and I will get you all of the information so that you can help Jeff in helping out the goal of 2,000 families that need a little boost this year at Christmas, and something that is an ongoing initiative. Jeff, I'll end by saying this for our listeners, and I mean it sincerely. I have mentioned it before on the air. I will mention it again. I will never forget when I had my heart attack and I looked down and I had a voicemail from you, and you left me a very kind voicemail offering your help in any way, and you are one of those dudes, without question, in my mind, for the people that you're friends with. They can call you anytime, day or night, with anything that is needed, and you will be there, just so long as it's not between midnight and 1:15 on Saturday night when Landman comes on, right? That's the bottom line, right?
That's right, Jay. I appreciate your kind words always, and you know I love how much I love you, and I appreciate all that you do. People don't know what you do; they just hear your voice, your legendary voice. But behind the scenes, you're like me. You're a giver. You want to help, and I appreciate everything that you're involved with as well.
Jeff, we appreciate it as always. Look forward to talking to you again and helping out with the Christmas quarterback, man. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, Jake. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Jeff George joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, and I am, trust me, I've seen behind the scenes of all the work that's going into this and the fact that it's helping out people in Indianapolis. I love everything about it. New member in Indianapolis on the sports side of things. He is a guard for the Pacers that was extending plays galore the other night by keeping loose balls alive, and I love that sort of a drive. We'll talk to the guy that I'm talking about for the Pacers, Ethan Thompson, next. Thank you to Jeff George for his time, quarterback, ChristmasQB.com. Christmas quarterback, ChristmasQB.com, the website. Joining me now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, this guy really impressed me. As a matter of fact, my buddy Michael Ware goes to the Pacer games with me, and Michael is a huge Pacer fan, right? And then after the games, he always sends me his observations of the game and that kind of thing. And he sends me a message the other day that simply says, "Thanks again for the invite last night. Nice win. And go Ethan Thompson." And because we're watching it, and he's like, "Man, this guy's out there hustling, making every play." And he joins us on the program now. He is a new member of the Indiana Pacers, and he was, I believe, an NBA starter. Am I correct, Ethan Thompson, in saying in game number 4 of your NBA career, you're starting, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. No, it's a great transition for sure. I mean, this whole week has been, dream come true of, getting this opportunity and then, being able to, get used to the team and then, just trying to find my way to make an impact and try to win a game. So just doing what I can.
Well, I want to get to this because the way you make an impact. Now, I noticed in the fourth quarter of that game against Sacramento, there was at one point in that game, Ethan, there were 3 straight possessions where you either kept the ball alive on an offensive rebound or tapped out defensive rebounds and just putting yourself hustle plays, quite frankly, to keep possessions alive or to prohibit Sacramento from getting a second look at things. And then I looked at it, and I'm like, you were a 5-star recruit. You grew up in California. You're a 5-star recruit. You go to Oregon State. You play, obviously, in a big conference. When did you realize that, and how did you manage to transition from being a guy that spent the majority of your career as the mainline player to now a guy that has to be a complementary player?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is goes back to my understanding of the game and how it was taught. So I gotta credit my dad. He's taught me everything that I know. All the coaches that I've had growing up have given me a great foundation of what winning basketball is. And it's not always that you got to be the one that's hitting the shots to make an impact on the game. But whether it's spacing the floor properly, making the hustle plays, making the right reads offensively, defensively, and then, just doing whatever it takes. And then, having that fabric, could lead to you being the guy. For in my case, the majority of my career, and then, but then in this situation, I still have that same fabric of whatever it takes to win. And at the end of the day, I'm just a competitor. So going out there and competing however I can.
Now, your father obviously was a coach when you were growing up. I believe, is he still on staff at Oregon State? I know he was at one time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's still on staff. He had got the job, I think, going into my sophomore year of high school, and then I got the opportunity to play for him, and then with my older brother as well, Stephen Thompson Jr. So,
now, this has to be a record. I don't know if this is correct. This has to be a record, Ethan Thompson. You started every game. You played every game at Oregon State and started every game. Is that correct?
Yeah. I believe I do have the record in starts, and I don't know about most games played, but most games started for sure. I know that.
127 of 127, and I would imagine if I were you, I would be regularly emailing and or sending that statistic to Gary Payton and just remind him of it, right?
Yeah, right. Nah. It is great to be in great company and then to have my name. I'm probably like 2 or 3 starts above him, but it's definitely great to be in that company for sure.
Okay, so you have played in your professional career. You have played in the G League. You have played in Mexico. You have played in Puerto Rico, which I know that you have also played for the Puerto Rican national team, right? You have played back into, I believe, the G League for the Magic organization, then in Sioux Falls, and now here, okay? So how long does it take you to acclimate to new roster and learn the system that Indiana's running?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult of a acclimation, to this team, because they got a lot of guys that can play the right way. They know how to play the right way, and that's a testament to how coach has been building this team for not just this year, but like years before as well. So at the end of the day, it's just basketball and being able to make the right reads. The probably the toughest part of the transition was just learning the different terminology. A lot of teams use, different language for different actions on the court, different positions. So trying to use the right terminology and be on the same page with that with my teammates, and they've done a good job of getting me, on the same page as well. So it's been good.
The newest Pacer, Ethan Thompson, is my guest. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. When you arrived with this franchise, what player on the roster for the Pacers was the one that was the most open to basically saying to kind of immediately took you under their wing? Which one would that be?
Yeah. I'm gonna say I've played summer league a few years ago, so like I've had a relationship with the guys, with the majority of guys. But I will say that Jay Huff has done a good job of kind of taking me under his wing. He's been in a similar position that I'm in, been battling it in the G League, and then he's been able to make his mark in the NBA as well. Now he's kind of been talking to me, encouraging me, and really being that voice and reassurance of confidence and everything, like calming me down if I'm nervous or whatever it is. But he's been that constant voice for sure.
Is it hard to, when you are in, and I'm going to say this respectfully, Ethan, but I think you'll understand what I mean. When you so far are in kind of a vagabond career, right, where you're going and you're playing for different teams, is it difficult in a situation to hone in on what it is that the Pacers need you to do, as opposed to taking the opportunity to showcase what you can do elsewhere for other teams to see? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not too difficult for me because for me, one of the big things that I've learned throughout the course of my career, which I have been on many G League situations trying to make it, is kind of just being where your feet are and not worrying about the future, not worrying about what comes next, because you got to make the most of where you're at now. And that's something that's really kept me grounded and kind of been in the back of my mind on how can I help the Pacers, not necessarily trying to show what I can do for other teams. Is the situation I'm in now, and I think that will lead to more opportunity of showcasing everything I can do, but still with the intention of helping the Pacers though.
Now, when you were in high school in California, if I'm not mistaken in the California high school tournament, did you knock out the team that had all of the LaMelo and LiAngelo and all the Ball brothers on it?
So my junior year, when Lonzo was still a senior, we lost to them in CIF. But then the year after, we had ended up beating them. And my senior year, Lonzo left, but LaMelo, Jello, they still had a few other guys that went on to play college and in the NBA as well. So
now was their dad on the sidelines? Was their dad crazy the whole time?
I mean, I want to use the term crazy, but he's been, super supportive and very into it. But yeah, it's always been good to play against them because it's the environment that they bring to the game, especially at when we were in high school. High school basketball, when I was in college high school basketball when I was in high school was, a fun thing to be a part of. The games are always sold out, so it was very fun.
When you grow up, we know of here the great players from Southern California. I mean, it goes without saying. You just mentioned three of them that you had to play, right?
Uh-huh.
We feel in Indiana like the other 49 states look at Indiana as a basketball mecca. Now, you're from California. Yeah. What is your perception of Indiana basketball?
No, for sure. I think of, great basketball. Hard-nosed basketball as well, and a long history of talent, and that's something I'm glad that I have that understanding of, because I kind of got familiar with it when I was with Oregon State and we had went on that run to the Elite Eight. It was hosted that COVID year where each round was in Indiana, and then being out here for that like month and a half or whatever it was pretty cool just to, learn the history of the city and get a feel for the city.
Ethan, after the win in Chicago, Rick Carlisle, went on to say like, hey, he was, doing some scrimmages with, Quentin Jackson and some of the other guys and our trainers, and I had to call the trainer like, hey, get him off the floor. At what point, or how did it feel, I guess, in that moment to realize that you were going to get your first like actual shot at playing some meaningful minutes in the NBA?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like usually after shoot around, I'll go back to the hotel, take a nap, and that during that time, my nap time basically, my eyes are closed, but I was still awake, just kind of trying to envision everything that's gonna happen, and a lot of nervous energy, but excited energy as well. And then once my name got called to sub in, and a couple possessions down, I kind of got settled, and it was good from there. But definitely something that I've been looking forward to, my whole life, my whole career, been working for that moment. So I'm glad that I was able to experience that and just trying to continue to build off of it.
So then how did they tell you you're a starter? Take me through what happens when they tell you, by the way, you're starting against Sacramento.
Yeah, we come into practice. I don't know if it was the next day or a few days after. Coming to practice, and we were about to watch film, and then they have my initials up for the matchups against Sacramento, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like, I was excited, and getting that confidence from everybody on the team, coaching staff, has helped me a lot as well. So. I'm just excited to be able to go out there and compete with this group. They've been, very encouraging of me, and, they want the best for me as well. So
most importantly, and lastly with that, so you look up, you see E.T. right there as the starter, and like not the movie, the starter, right? So then,
right.
And this is the big thing. Every player on this roster in the pregame stuff goes through a line and has like a specific like handshake, dap up, whatever you want to call it, with TJ McConnell. Now, how long did it take you to learn that, and have you mastered what your specific one is? Because every player's is different.
No, I haven't mastered a specific one yet, but we gonna work on it for sure. Because that's something I have noticed that I gotta sit down and talk with them.
Yeah, see that. So you notice that, right? I mean, literally every single guy, right?
Yeah, everybody got their own unique handshake, so it's pretty tough.
And as a guard, everybody on the floor also has their own kind of unique spots, right? How do you learn that as a guard, of just kind of understanding where guys like their movement, where they like the ball, where the set goes, etc.? How long does it take to learn that?
It's something that I've been watching film on before I was even able to suit up. But like I've been getting a good understanding of how guys like to play, and the coaching staff has getting me used to, like, okay, if TJ's bringing up the floor, he usually likes to run this action. So if I'm in this position, I'll do this, and if I'm in that position, I'll do that. But kind of getting that understanding, it not necessarily takes time, but like as you get more reps of it, it kind of becomes second nature, and you pick up on patterns. So definitely something I've been trying to key on, throughout these practice days, and then in the game, even when I'm not in the game, just on the bench if I'm watching, I'm trying to pick up on those things as well.
By the way, maybe he hasn't told you, but I'm telling you right now, your dad, when he was Stevie Thompson at Syracuse, was the truth, man. Those Jimmy Boeheim had some hell of a teams, and between Derek Coleman and Sherman Douglas before your dad, and Ronnie Cycli, and people around here know about Syracuse ball. Stevie Thompson could ball, man.
Trust me, I've heard the stories and seen the film. So it's something that I've always get, and something I'm always grateful to have. To be his son and to be able to, carry on his name as well. So I'm glad I got that.
Yeah, they had some heck of a teams back then, and Crenshaw in high school and all of it. Love those teams and those eras. Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck, man. I appreciate the time today. Also having to be a little bit flexible in the way that our schedule worked today, Ethan. I certainly appreciate it.
No, all good.
And we look forward to watching more hustle plays, all right?
Definitely. Appreciate you.
All right, much appreciated. Again, that is Ethan Thompson, the pride of Oregon State. His dad, Stevie Thompson, right after Indiana won the national title in '87. And those teams that Boeheim had, man, they were loaded. And there were so many great players that came out. Sean Higgins was out of I think Fairfax in L.A. at the same time when his dad was at Crenshaw. And special times and great players that have come from there. All right, we'll get back into it from the Colts standpoint. Philip Rivers has spoken today. We'll let you know what he has to say. And we got to get into what happened last night in Bloomington and what happens moving forward with the Rose Bowl. Mike Nizilik, joins me, Bloomington Herald-Times. That is going to be coming up just about 25 minutes from now. Is the home state of Philip Rivers, and that is where he was coaching high school football when the call came from the Colts. Philip, you want to give it another shot? Last game that you played in the NFL was January the 9th of 2021. Walking off the field against Buffalo, 1 year with the Colts. But now the opportunity is there where we might have a chance for you to come back and do it again. Philip Rivers spoke earlier today and got somewhat reflective and emotional when asked that exact question of all of the places, what was just simply the thought when you knew it was the Colts in the city of Indianapolis that showed up on that cell phone giving you that call and that question?
Try not to get emotional, actually, you asking that. As simple as can be is a coach that I love and an organization that I really enjoyed being with. Mr. Irsay believing in me in that year in 2020 when it didn't go so good in 2019. And shoot, the teammates that I were able to play with, shoot, 14 of them are still here. Training room's the same. PR guys are the same. Equipment room's the same. And they wanted me. And, I try to keep it as simple as that. And, a game I love to play, a game that I thought I was done playing. Certainly, I wasn't really hanging on any hope of playing again. I'd kind of thought that ship had sailed. But something about it excited me, and it's kind of one of those deals. The door opens, and you can either walk through it and find out if you can do it, or run from it. And I know that there's risk involved, obviously, of what may or may not happen. But the only way to find out is going for it. And I just felt almost like it was a gift, another opportunity to play and cut it loose with your guys in the game you love to play, and the dream that you got to live. You may get some bonus time. So I really kept it as simple as that in my mind, and here I stand.
Okay, so in terms of that risk, you just heard Jeff George talking about it when Jeff George said, when the times that I came back, just getting into cleats and the way your foot feels different and your legs and everything else. There is that question of the physical toll, and then it goes without saying the physicality of a team. For example, if it's going to be Seattle where he first makes his start. Phillip Rivers, your thoughts on just whether or not, physically speaking, it's going to be the same as it once was?
Yeah, we're going to find out that too. I think so. I know. I know it is tough, and I know 5 years is a long time. Believe me, that weighed on me a lot. It being so long, but it also is a game I've played a long time and stayed in over the last 5 years. And I know high school ball is different, but staying involved in the game. And I watch the Colts and the Chargers every Sunday, about every snap, and I watch about every game there is. And I know that's not NFL playing quarterback. I know that's a far stretch from that, but it's not like I just kind of shut football down and I'm trying to pick it back up. I've been still been very into it since I've been gone. But, yeah, no, it is a physical game, and it's fast, and dudes are big and fast, just like they were. And so I'm just take it a day at a time, and I do feel good. There's something about being back in this building that feels right, and I'm just thankful and like I said, really just taking it one meeting at a time, one lift at a time, and really embracing it and going after it.
That's like 9 shoots, by the way, over the course of a couple minutes, which is kind of fun. Phillip Rivers, the last thing here, keep in mind, folks, is that, the year that he was here was the COVID year. There wasn't a lot of the interactive, but you can hear that it is kind of a special place for him, maybe because he did have that last year for the Colts was effective. There's no doubt about it. So why, when you are down coaching high school football, you're 5 years removed, why Phillip Rivers was Indianapolis indeed the perfect spot to give this one more go?
This wasn't just any place or any coach, or it wasn't. It's not like, oh shoot, I hope see what happens in the league, and I'll see if I can get ready. It wasn't that.
So it wasn't just any place, right? Wasn't just any place. We'll continue the conversation on it and get into what happened last night at Assembly Hall. We'll do it all on the other side here. Corey and Company on the Fan. Which more surprised you, Eddie Garrison? Which more surprised you, Colts fans? What we are currently experiencing of Phillip Rivers being the starting quarterback for the final 4 games of this season?
Potentially.
Or Jeff Saturday being named the head coach? Which is the bigger, like, did I read that correctly?
It's got to be Saturday, right? Just because of the fact he had, like, no coaching experience? And he was on ESPN, like, hours beforehand?
Which one was a bigger shock to your system when you learned it as a Colts fan? That's my I'm getting ready to put that on a X-Post Twitter poll. Eddie, when it comes to starting this Sunday, now last night, and I'm going to go back to this. Every year, you know, there's kind of been a lot of the shows that I do each day, and it's not even by design sometimes, but they take on a theme. And today's theme, to some extent, is about like loyalty or understanding of it. Phillip Rivers, I think, felt, you just heard him there, the emotion in his voice of this franchise and the Colts, because I think he knew that when the Chargers had decided to move on or whatever the situation was there, that it was Jim Irsay and the Colts that gave him an opportunity, and he's never forgotten that. And there's a little bit of loyalty. You can hear the emotion in his voice with that. And in addition to that, you know, we talked earlier with Jeff George, who now with his campaign to try to make a difference at Christmas for 2,000 families, because Indianapolis is a place that he loves it. And he felt like Indianapolis, you know, I think there was a time when he was playing where maybe he thought Indianapolis wasn't loyal back to him, but he's always been loyal. And he's a loyal guy. I mean, I can tell you, loyal guy. And loyalty also goes to this. And it's a little bit, there's a point to this here. It's a little bit selfish of me to bring it in this capacity, but I have always told the story. You know, Phillip Rivers reminds me a little bit of Pat Knight. They kind of look alike, and they definitely sound alike with the exception of their vernacular and word choices.
One more colorful than the other.
Yes. But when I was at IU and was really good friends with Pat, Robin Miller wrote an article making fun of Pat Knight.
I'm sure the Pat Knight part it's in the genes, the DNA.
That's right. In terms of the vernacular, yes. And so Robin Miller, who I had never met, wrote this article critical of Pat Knight. And so I called Robin Miller. You know, they used to have the phone number there in the sports page. And he answered. It's Robin. And so I said, you know, here's the deal. And I said, I don't think anybody disputes that Bob Knight would be a cantankerous character, but if you think it's difficult covering his teams or playing for him or whatever else, do you think it's easy being his kid? And then let alone an article that you write making fun of exactly that. And Robin kind of stopped and said, you know what? You're right. What's your name? So I told him my name, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a sports media member. And he said, well, do you want to meet me for lunch? So I drove up to Indy, met him, and he said, well, son, I can get you a job in our agate bureau, taking in phone calls. I've told this story a billion times, I know. And so he did. And so he literally walked me across the hall after I had lunch with him and introduced me to Mark Morrow, who was in charge of the agate bureau, and said, Jake here's at IU and wants to work for the biggest paper in the state. What do you say? And literally, not unlike Ethan Thompson, not unlike Phillip Rivers, my Saturday night was spent doing something that I never would have guessed on Monday I was doing, and that was sitting in the Star sports office, taking phone calls and writing box scores. And I loved every minute of it. Loved it. And Robin is the definition of loyalty. And he began having a holiday dinner upon his retirement every year at IREA's, and he invited all of the former Star employees. And he included me. And I'm like, Robin, you got John Banch and Phil Richards and Tom Reitman and the late David Benner and Bill Benner and Kurt Cavan and all these guys that are Mike Chappell, legendary writers, John Banch. And he said, son, you worked at the Star. You worked in the Sports Bureau. You worked there too. And Tony Rainier's there that worked in the Bureau with me. And so that's what Robin would do every year at Christmas. But out of loyalty, all those guys that I just mentioned, and Donna Eggert, who was working there as well, they're all loyal. And so we continue to do that dinner every year, even with Robin having passed, even with David Benner having passed, even with John Banch having passed. It's done out of loyalty to the spirit of what those guys brought to the table and the glue they were for the group. So last night we did it again. And we sat down and Chap walked in. Mike Chappell sat down, ordered his Coors Light on ice, and the question everybody had, is Phillip Rivers going to start on Sunday? Now, we get into telling stories about A.J. Foyt slapping Robin around, and we get into telling stories about George McGinnis dominating and you know, different stories that guys had covered. But the primary focus in the beginning of last night's conversation was about the Colts and about this story of Phillip Rivers returning at the age of 44. And maybe, in fact, Phillip Rivers coming back at the age of 44, maybe it is a little bit about loyalty or familiarity because, sure, they reached out to Derek Carr. Sure, they reached out to Andrew Luck. Sure, they may have asked a couple of other guys. But Phillip Rivers was one that knows Shane Steichen, and Shane Steichen knows Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers feels familiarity within the building, and his key fob worked. And so he's back. Now, a couple of questions here. The first being, something weird happens. I can only imagine when you are in the peak athletic shape that you need to be in to play professional sports at the highest of levels. You can only imagine what happens when your metabolism then slows down to the form of a normal guy. And when you're playing professional sports, believe me, the Colts, the Pacers, I mean, I've been through the facilities. I see the chefs and the restaurants and the cafes and everything they have and the protein smoothies, and everything is designed, everything. Your body, when you are a professional athlete, you are a machine, and it is no different. The Pacers personnel, the Colts personnel, you are seen by those franchises as a high-functioning, top-level machine. And you wouldn't go into a Ferrari factory or a Lamborghini factory and expect them to be putting the cheapest of gas or the bargain basement oil in those machines. And the same is true of the diet. So you can only imagine what happens when you're done playing then, and instead of eating everything that is perfectly fine-tuned to exactly what your blood type, your muscle mass, everything that you need, and yes, it is that specified with professional athletes, then all of a sudden you're going out and you're eating like a normal Joe, right? You go from Pro Bowl Joe to average Joe. What does that do to your body? Phillip Rivers was asked, in fact, Phillip, be honest. Are you weighing? Are you looking? Are you sleek and svelte as you were last time we saw you walking off the field in Buffalo 5 years ago?
Not what it was when I walked off the field in Buffalo. All right, I can tell you that. But then I follow that up with I ain't never ran away from anybody anyway. Right? So I'm gonna. They you know, people say, well, they're gonna know you're gonna be right there, and it's like, well, they knew that for 16, 17 years. So
that is true. That is true. Now Seattle, a top 5 defense in terms of sacks. I think they're 4th in the NFL right now in total sacks. Aggressive, good defense, and a really good team. Really good team. It's going to take a best effort from the Colts, regardless of the quarterback, to get a win in Seattle. And they are in situation now where with 4 games remaining, they certainly need probably 3. They could maybe get away with it at 2 more wins if those wins are within the division against Jacksonville and Houston, depending on what those teams do. But with all of that, the reality is that Seattle is a big one, and there was some discussion last night amongst that group that we were sitting there in between wedges of garlic bread about whether or not the Colts, it would be in their best interest to just throw Brett Rippon out there, kind of have him be the sacrificial lamb, let Phillip Rivers get reacclimated, refamiliar, and then bring him in against San Francisco in a less daunting task of Seattle. Phillip Rivers, your thoughts. Are you starting on Sunday?
If that's where it goes, I'll be ready to go. I mean, I'm preparing like that. I mean, I'm going to prepare and push for that, and I'm not push. I don't mean push them for that. I mean push myself to get there. And if that's what we feel is the best, or they feel, we collectively feel is the best decision, then we'll go. Got some good memories in Seattle. Some not so great, and I know how good that stinking team is and how well they're playing right now. So, me at 30 years old, me at 44 years old, going to Seattle and winning in 2025 in week 14 or whatever it is, it's going to be tough. There's been a lot of quarterbacks go in there, and it's been tough. So, again, it came back down from those kind of challenges, but we're just going to keep it taking it, one day at a time. Excited to get on the practice field and see how that feels. That's going to be another step in the process.
Now, we have one more I want to hear here, Eddie, of Phillip Rivers when it comes to doubt. There's doubt, right? There's doubt from fans. Phillip Rivers is, he's a great quarterback, and man, he's a fun guy, and shoot this and shoot that, and stinking this and stinking that. Dadgummit. But he is not 28 years old anymore. And there are those, that's from fans. There are those in the media that doubt. Come on, this feels like a Hail Mary. It's the term I used yesterday. I got all kinds of questions about whether or not this can work out, and what does it do to the legacy of Phillip Rivers? What does it do to the legacy or the stability for Chris Ballard? What does it do to the stability for Shane Steichen? All of them, if this doesn't work out. Yes, there is reason to believe. Yes, there is precedent to think this guy can play, but there also is a ton of precedent the other way that gives you doubt as to whether or not a 44-year-old guy off a high school practice field can come back in and lead an NFL team into the playoffs. Phillip Rivers, there is doubt out there. What about overcoming it?
It's been a whirlwind of 48 hours, I'll say. But each moment that goes by, I feel more and more confident. I really do. I think for me, the decision wasn't easy, and because of all the things that you all can imagine. There's human nature to have a little doubt. And I think for me, working through that was, well, that's normal. That's normal to have a little doubt. Who wouldn't have doubt after 5 years? But where's that? Is that doubt real or not? And it's like, well, let's again, like I go back to our first answer. The only way you can find out is to go. And so I've been excited.
So there you go, excited and ready to go. Now, Eddie, you've also had good times in Seattle, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm going to ask Joel if he needs an intern for Sunday to go with him.
I love it out there, man.
Oh, me too.
Joel Erickson, by the way, is going to join us here, bottom of the hour. What's the weather forecast? I'm going to guess on Saturday, or Sunday, excuse me. I'm going to guess on Sunday. I need you to pull this up for me. I have been out there and covered games on Christmas Eve. I think I covered the Rams and Seahawks like in November. I've been to Seattle many a time in the summer. I love the city of Seattle. But I'm going to guess.
Okay.
I'm going to guess in Seattle this weekend, the high, let me ask you this, between the low and the high, how much of a variation is there of degrees?
6 degrees.
Okay, I'm going to say it is going to be a low of 38, a high of 44, and it is going to be overcast. If I dressed for it to be between 38 and 44, would I be overly uncomfortable?
No, I don't think.
Low of 45, high of 51, overcast. Am I going in the wrong direction?
No.
Really? Low of 49, high of 55, rain. Okay, what do we got?
Low of 51, high of 57, overcast.
That's not bad. That's not bad, man.
It's going to be better in Seattle than it will be in Indianapolis. Have you seen the -2 potentially this weekend?
I'm going to be in Milwaukee. How's that? You know what I mean? I said to Shannon, you want to do Christmas at the zoo in Milwaukee? And she's like, is that an outdoor zoo? No, it's an indoor zoo. Yeah, the whole thing, it's a mall. It's
You're going
to
Milwaukee?
Yes.
Oh, Beer Fairy.
I forgot about that. We'll have to check in with Joel at the bottom of the hour. He'll be the timing could not be more perfect. Yes, the Beer Fairy can in fact make a delivery because I'll be stopping on my way back, as always, at Woodman's, which is the world's greatest, most unbelievable grocery store in Kenosha on the way back. And the liquor section of Woodman's in Kenosha literally is half the size of Kenosha itself. It's truly unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. Last night, unbelievable. In fact, what Indiana was able to do from the outside. You want to talk about a guy lightning in a bottle. We saw it last night at Assembly Hall. A new scoring record for a building that was built in 1972 is when it first opened. And in that time, nobody has scored more points than what we saw from Wilkerson last night for Indiana in a rout of Penn State. And there is football to discuss as well. Joining us for all of it, he joins us from Bloomington, of course, the Herald Times telephone, right? The Bloomington Herald Times. Our friend Mike
Nidelik
joins us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Mike, I will give you your choice, football, basketball. You would like to lead with which?
I mean, we could get basketball out of the way, right? Everybody's focused on football, but I mean, that was a heck of a offensive performance yesterday by Lamar Wilkerson.
It was, and so let's focus on that. My thought is this, and then you tell me if I'm speaking too generically about Darren DeVries' team in his first year in Bloomington. I've watched a lot of them. I obviously, like most, watched the vast majority of that game with Louisville, and I thought that their lack of athleticism in that game really was showcased by Louisville, who was able to exploit it. But when you can shoot the ball with volume rhythm shooters, you're going to give yourself a chance more often than not. Last night, we saw exactly that. Can they find a balance, I guess, if you will, of not being so three-reliant and getting themselves better in those situations where they're getting run against a Louisville? Or is this kind of where we are, of nights when it's going, they're going to be really good, nights when it's not, then go ahead and leave at halftime?
Yeah, I think it's a little of that. I think they're going to struggle when they're not going to be able to shoot. They're going to struggle because that's their strength, right? And he lined up shooters, right? That's what he recruited. That's what this lineup is, 3-point shooting heavy. And so when you can't hit the basket, I mean, that's going to be some long nights. I think you will see more steady consistency because I think they will have more of a defensive identity. There won't be as many lapses, and they will be able to just get out of those games, a couple of those in low-scoring affairs by just being sort of the better team defensively and getting just enough offense. But I think you'll see this growth from this team as they sort of play together. Remember, this is a whole new roster. This is not just this isn't going to be a straight line up. I think it's going to take a time. I think if you look back to the rebuilds he had at Drake in his last year, Darren DeVries was speaking of, and West Virginia, there were moments like this. It's early in the season. They suffered a bad loss, West Virginia did, to Pittsburgh. And I was told DeVries didn't speak on the way home. They took a bus, and it was like a couple-hour drive, and then immediately started watching film. So, there's going to be those moments just because it's such a new roster that you're going to struggle, and there's just going to be times where you kind of need to regroup. He said they watched a lot of film, so they, made some different emphasis on calling specific plays and doing more of those things on the coaching side of it to help the team out of it. But I just think it's going to be a learning process for a team that's never played before, together before, obviously, this season and when I was single player. And so it takes time to build that chemistry.
Going into it, I mean, obviously, Penn State was interesting to me because when you're looking at the score, you're saying, wow, Indiana absolutely eviscerated a team that comes in at 8-1. But is it fair to say, Mike, we didn't know a lot about Penn State necessarily because their schedule to that point is one that it's just now getting real for them. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Penn State's going to finish at the bottom of the Big Ten. I mean, that's no question. But I also think there's something to be said. I mean, we've seen the football team do it, right? Beating teams that you should beat. Like this Indiana team probably should have beat Minnesota too, and they lost that game. So, I mean, you take care of business. You take care of business in impressive fashion, and you sort of build back some momentum for that Kentucky game, which is one that you kind of want to get back now because you did lose to Minnesota and you didn't look great against Louisville. And so I think those are important moments. Like, look, you get credit for beating the teams on your schedule, whether they're good or bad. And this was a bad Penn State team, but man, did they look good beating them.
I'll tell you what, 44 points in 24 minutes is kind of absurd, is it not? 10 of 15 from three-point range, 16 of 22 from the floor for Lamar Wilkerson. It is an Assembly Hall record. Was that an example of a guy simply getting his shot and feeling it no matter where he was, or was it more an example of he knocked down a couple early and Indiana then did an outstanding job of finding him in spots where he needed to be found?
Again, both, because like the players, his teammates recognize, like, look, this guy's on a heater. We have to get him the ball, right?
Right.
And then he was also not just. I mean, look, he hit 10 3-pointers, and he was just out of this world. But he got his shots too, like going to the basket. Like there was a couple times in the first half. I think he scored 11 straight points, and only one of those was a 3-pointer. He was driving the lane, so he was feeling it in the sense that, like, look, he was feeling confident and good, and not just like, look, I don't have to. I mean, he was in the second half a lot more were threes, but he was, when the opportunity was there, he was cutting to the basket, and that's, I think, is just as important, right? Just having him feel, because he was in a slump. I think he was 10 for 40 over the last 6 games, and so he just needed to feel better, more comfortable offensively, and you saw that in all facets. And I think that was the big thing that stood out. Just like, yeah, he was hitting him from anywhere on the floor, but he was also just not, chucking up from half court. Like he was trying to work and get a shot, and get things in the flow of the game, and not just sort of, throw up threes. But I mean, the second half, there were a couple times when he was just wide open, and he's like, well, I mean, I guess, right? If you're not going to guard me, sure, I'll just take this right now.
Okay, so let's get to the football side of things. Before we get into injury situation, let me ask this. Indiana coming off of that euphoric evening on Saturday, and Curt Cignetti saying, now I got time to get these guys humbled and ready and et cetera. What has Indiana continued here with standard operating procedure in terms of the way Curt Cignetti is handling schedule, availability, et cetera, for players, or did they get a little bit of time off before they then regroup for this push?
Yeah, they're going to get a little time off. They're basically handling the next kind of like 10 days-ish as an off week, an extended off week, like they'd handle it during the season, sort of rest and recovery for the players. Coaches will do some scouting. They're basically waiting to get in sort of the game prep or mode until they know their opponent, essentially. Wait till Oklahoma or Alabama. They'll do they'll wait to kind of do a deep dive into one of the opponent until they get to find out who it is. So that's basically kind of how they're handling the next 10 days.
Okay, Mike Neislick, my guest in Bloomington, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Mike, reality is this. Stephen Daly, we now know the defensive lineman who has been really good for Indiana, the former Kent State player, and has really been a force for them in their pass rush. I think most people by now have seen the video. For those that have not, it was pretty innocuous. He was talking to some fans, family, whatever it might be, up in the front row of Lucas Oil Stadium, and kind of just gave a small leap up to give them a high five, and then landed very awkwardly on his right knee buckling. Where do things stand right now after he had been carted off from that situation? What do we know?
Yeah, Curt Cignetti had a virtual press conference just about a half hour ago, just about kind of talking about Mendoza being a Heisman finalist, but you did get asked about Stephen Daly's status because obviously that was, like you said, all kind of blown up on social media. He confirmed that he suffered a serious injury. I mean, obviously we saw in those pictures of his leg being immobilized, and he's likely, probably, I think was the word he used, out for the rest of the season and won't be back for the CFP run. He's called it sort of just an unbelievable kind of, just shocking sort of kind of turn in the sense that, like, it looked like it did happen in the aftermath of the game, but you don't know. I hesitate with that because I went back and looked, per Pro Football Focus, he led the defense in snaps, played 56 snaps. So, what came before it might have
Right.
had something to do with what happened. I saw all sorts of guys limping around after the game. I mean, the offensive line, I don't think anybody was walking straight after. You take on a Penn State, you take on a game against an Ohio State team that has that kind of level of talent. That's the price you pay, right? It takes a physical toll. And so, does that injury happen without facing Ohio State and playing 56 snaps? I don't know. You can say for sure, right? But obviously, just kind of a freak thing. And, he was as good of a player, not just on the team, but in the country on defense the last, 6 weeks.
And he was initially he was offering depth to Indiana because, that was a situation in a position where they had attrition even before that. Do they have now depth to replace him?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to count it out. I mean, it's not proven depth. There's not experience in that bench. Danny Ndukwe is probably the guy next man up. But I mean, like everybody that Brian Haynes has turned to has stepped in and been productive. Like, look, Isaiah Jones wasn't expected to do what he's done this season. Caden Turner came in for a game and got an interception and made an impact. Like, I'm not going to count it out because this defense has and like D'Angelo Pons missed the Iowa game, and Gandy stepped in and played well. And so like every time that there's been a moment like this, Bryant Haynes has coached up the player that's come in. So I'm not going to say look. Do I think that they'll get the kind of production they got from Daly? No. Do I think Daniel Duque will step in and do a nice job? Probably, just based on the evidence we've seen of what this defense has done, over the last 2 years with Brian Haynes at the helm.
All right, Mike, we appreciate the time. We'll be watching all the coverage, looking for it. Bloomington Herald Times, Michael Nizilik, of course, on social media as well. Mike, appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Mike Nizilik joining us on the Java House Peel and Port guest line, which is the exact same guest line where when we come back, we will check in with Joel A. Erickson. Big news today. Phillip Rivers is in the building. He has talked. We'll find out what the Colts have planned. Will he start on Sunday? That'll be the first thing we ask Joel next. Joel A. Erickson my ex-post Twitter question, which, by the way, I just noticed the other day for the first time. I guess I should offer and extend a delayed apology. Joel A. Erickson of the Indianapolis Star, who joins us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Joel, I just noticed the other day for the first time, and not that this matters. I mean, we're not middle school kids, but it kind of does matter. I never knew that I wasn't following you on the ex-post Twitter. Now, I'm sure that this wasn't something that was keeping you up at night, but it's kind of one of those things where you get retweeted enough or reposted enough that I saw it all the time and just assumed I was following you, and I can't keep it straight anymore anyway because every time I go on there, it takes me to the For You section, and it's nothing but QAnon conspiracies of weird stuff happening, and I can't keep track. You know what I mean? I don't know what the hell's going on, so I apologize for that.
No issues on my end. I just figured, I was like, Jake doesn't really want me to get in the weeds on Sundays. He doesn't want to know why they ran a blitz. Yeah.
And you know what? And I don't really care about your little Brewer stuff either, but that's okay. Okay, let's get to this. Here's the question that I have right now going on the Expos Twitter, my survey. Which was a bigger, wait, what moment for you? Finding out Jeff Saturday was going to be the interim coach to finish a season, or finding out that Phillip Rivers is going to be the quarterback to do it?
Oh, Jeff Saturday.
Okay.
Jeff Saturday by a mile and a half. I actually don't think, when you sit back and think about the position the Colts are in with their top two quarterbacks being down, that after you get through the initial shock of the 5 years, you're like, well, there really isn't anybody else they can sign. I can kind of talk myself into it. It's the Jeff Saturday thing. I keep saying this. Jeff, I feel like the further we get away from that, I feel like I dreamed that whole last 8 games of that season.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. For the quarterback spot, let's get to this. And it's kind of irrelevant, but it's not. Do we have a list of quarterbacks that we are fairly certain the Colts kicked the tires on before settling on Phillip? Settling's the wrong word, but deciding on Phillip Rivers.
I don't think we have a list. I think it's more that if you go by process of elimination, just in terms of who can be traded, who can't be traded, who's on other teams' practice squads and therefore can be protected, you can kind of realize, if you go through, that you're looking at a pretty sparse list of people. I have to give Nathan Brown credit for this. He went through every single transaction where they have a tryout going back to the beginning of the season and came up with 16 quarterbacks that have had tryouts with teams or workouts with teams, including the Colts when Anthony Richardson got hurt. And that list included 2 quarterbacks that I got to be honest, I hadn't heard of them. And I'm a sicko who covers the NFL and is supposed to know these things. And I had not heard of, I believe it's Ben Woldridge is one, and then the other one's first name is Seth, and I cannot remember the last name.
Seth, you said?
Yes.
Seth doesn't sound like a typical quarterback name. Did you say Ben Woolridge?
Yes.
Oh, he played with the Rams.
Look at Eddie.
Ben Woolridge looks like Doogie Howser. Right? Kind of looks like Doogie Howser.
There's other names on there that they're kind of bouncing around in the echoes of my brain, like Austin Reed and Taylor Eldersma and stuff like that.
Okay.
I kind of remember seeing
but what
that
about
at one
this?
point or the other.
Okay, what about this? Sam Ehlinger is on a practice squad, correct?
That's true.
Meaning
That's correct. So with Sam Ehlinger, there's an interesting thing here. I do not know if the Colts tried to get him off of Denver's practice squad at any point this season. What I do know is that Broncos reporters, several Broncos reporters, said that at the beginning of the season, he had opportunities to join at least 2 other 53-man rosters instead of staying on Denver's practice squad, and he told them no to stay on Denver's practice squad. So, like I said, I do not know if the Colts tried to pull him off either when Richardson got hurt or now, but we have this history of him saying,
right,
no, I'm staying in Denver even though I'm on the practice squad.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because, to me, it would be peculiar if he was available and the Colts did not explore it only because that is a quarterback that at one time the owner decided to take Matt Ryan and put him down to the third string and essentially mandate that Sam Ehlinger become their starter.
Right. And the other thing is, like, I think a big part of getting Rivers is that they know he knows the offense. Well, Ehlinger would know the offense too. He was here last year. So that he would be one of those, like, he's the first name that you go to. You're like, he's on Denver's practice squad. But there's that piece out there of he's apparently been telling teams all season, I am staying in Denver.
Eddie, did you happen to feel a slight breeze?
It got a little cold in here. I did feel that, yeah.
I noticed, and I think I saw the door move just as first. Oh, in fact, our friend Robin the Genie has arrived. That is correct.
Back.
That is correct, yes. Joel, if you recall, there is one time where you successfully predicted a question that I asked you for $1 million. I don't remember that, Joel. Do you remember that? Does the Genie owe you $1 million?
I have not seen, my account has not gotten that direct deposit.
Well, my accountant has let me know it would be easier to do in an even amount of $2 million. Thus, I'll give you opportunity for double. Oh, what do you think? Joel, you going with it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
My question for you then, Joel A. Erickson of the Indianapolis Star, is who do you believe will be the starting quarterback for Indianapolis on Sunday in Seattle?
I think it's going to be Phillip Rivers.
Okay. He doesn't get on an airplane to come here and be on the practice squad, right?
It's also just kind of the excitement that Shane Steichen was talking about it. It's I think the thing that surprises me most is that Riley Leonard was practicing today. And typically in the NFL, if you practice on Wednesday, you are okay to play on Sunday. Now, they kind of said we'll see, but Shane Steichen kind of said I think he said he's good to go in terms of his knee. I was maybe expecting a little bit more, that Leonard was a little more injured than I thought, but it does just seem like if you're Phillip Rivers, you don't come out of retirement to just hang around on the sideline. You could do that if you wanted to come hang around on the sideline. I'm sure Shane would let you do that just randomly on some week.
Hang on.
Like I think he probably comes out to play.
Eddie, it's not often that we go from the Genie right into conspiracies, but I think I might have one. Let me throw to you, Joel A. Erickson, this query hypothesis. You ready?
Okay, let's hear it.
A grade 1 PCL sprain. We talked to Ralph Reif, and he was saying, like, look, that is certainly an injury. There's no question about it, but it also is one that is more minor in comparison to others. Is it possible that the Colts watched that game against Jacksonville, and while they like and respect Riley Leonard, they thought to themselves, we are within range of the playoffs here, and this guy probably can't get us there. We need to basically create some sort of justification why we would actually make a phone call to a 44-year-old Uncle Rico coaching high school football in Alabama and having passed 3 Buckies on the way here?
I think that the first, I don't know about creating the reason, but I do think that there's a possibility. Not that they watched the tape of the Jacksonville game. I think it has more to do with, I think they were maybe a little bit surprised that Leonard looked the way he did on Sunday, and thought, going forward against different defenses when it's more complex, we're not sure if.
Did we lose Joel, Eddie? Did the Genie?
A little bit better.
There he is. Joel, this situation at quarterback, Joel A. Erickson, Indianapolis Star, is our guest. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Remember to use the code JAKE25 for 25% off orders at Java House, and use, of course, my name or the fan, either one, to get the bundle, which is Wrangler Energy, Liquid Science Arctic Freeze, Liquid Science Orange. Those are hydration drinks, and the Java House Colombian coffee. Joel, what is the biggest storyline involving the Colts that we are not talking about because we're so focused on quarterback?
Charvarius Ward going on IR with the concussion. That's the biggest.
So he is back on IR today.
He is, and that means that he's out for the rest of the season because there's only 4 weeks left and it's a minimum of 4 games. So I guess he could come back if they make the playoffs, but he's out for the rest of the regular season. 3 concussions in one season, and on the second concussion, he publicly said he wondered if he was going to play football again because he was still dizzy, 3 or 4 weeks after having the concussion. It's kind of obvious. You have to wonder, what's the decision-making process going to be for him going forward in terms of, does he start thinking about, is it the right thing to do to keep pursuing this again going forward? He said it himself with the last one. This is the third one in a single season, and that's a guy that they thought was here for 3 years based on the deal he signed. So I think that's a significant storyline that, well, we probably won't have clarity on until the off season, but that's a pretty big deal.
Well, and Joel, I would understand, as I think anybody would, and I don't know this. I mean, obviously, this is mere conjecture on my behalf. If he decides, Shavarius Ward, that because of the injuries that he's had, 3 of them this year, and you were right. I mean, he basically said, look, this was the first time that he really sat and thought about his long-term future from a football standpoint. If he decides that means enough is enough, I don't think anybody would blame him, right?
No. I mean, I have a couple of friends who have been through very serious concussions and their aftermath, and it's scary. Like, some of that stuff is very scary, and it has a tendency to linger, and the symptoms come up in random places. Yeah, I don't think anyone would blame him at all if he said, you know what, I've had a good career. What happened to me this year is something that I couldn't have foreseen, and I do not want to deal with it again.
And, there's one thing there that you just pointed out, a significant difference between yourself, Joel Erickson, and Eddie Garrison. Do you know what that is?
What?
You have a couple of friends, right, Eddie? Isn't that right? Isn't that right, Eddie? There's a difference there. Joel, speaking of that, one of your friends I know is the Beer Fairy, who my understanding is...
I do like the Beer Fairy.
Yeah, well, my understanding is the Beer Fairy actually this weekend is going to be finding himself herself in Milwaukee, and will be stopping perhaps at the Woodman's in Kenosha. Are there any specific beer orders that Joel needs from the Beer Fairy, or are we good to go coming off the holidays?
If they have, we are not good to go coming off the holidays. The holidays are tough on the beer fridge. You know what I'm saying?
It's okay.
If there is a new Glarus, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, which is embarrassing. But if there's if we're in the porter or stout range, we're in porter or stout weather right now.
Okay.
I could use that visit from the old Beer Fairy. It is interesting. Do we know if the Beer Fairy is a he or a she? It's hard to tell.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The Kenosha Woodman's, which is the huge grocery store there, that my understanding is, the birdie has told me that's where the Beer Fairy stops. That's a cash and or debit card only dealio. And so if for example, like if the Beer Fairy has a guy that I know, if he forgets to bring his debit card and has only his Apple Pay or credit card, then the female companion, if she has cash or a debit card, she then takes over as the Beer Fairy, if you will, and makes the transaction. So
understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Beer Fairy goes either way. By the way, one thing I will not bring you, but I did find it interesting last time I was in Milwaukee. They do have a microbrew there called the Dahmer Killer Lager, and it has a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer on the bottle, and it feels a bit uncomfortable.
Did you try it?
I did try it, yeah.
Is it good?
It tasted like foul smells coming from the basement. Not going to lie to you, right? Bit of a surprise kick that you don't anticipate and made me exceptionally drowsy.
Did you say it was killer?
Yeah, the Killer Lager, the Dahmer Killer Lager. Yeah, I got a little bit, you know what I mean? But
you're a little bit out of it, yeah. Like you probably shouldn't have more than one.
I also, dude, it was totally uncomfortable though, because I'm like, look, it's not like this is a story from 100 years ago. I mean, like, there are still families very impacted by that in that community. So but I did taste it. You know what I mean?
When I was in England covering the Saints, we were at this pub and they were like selling us all the beers, And then they said, we have this marshmallow porter, and they held it up. It was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Oh,
from
well, you got to get
Ghostbusters.
with that, right?
And we were like, why didn't you show us that first? That's an automatic try.
Well, needless to say, with the Dahmer lager, when they give you a sample, you're like, if you could bring me a bottle and I'll take the cap off, please. I don't need you bringing me that in draft.
That's
all
a
right.
good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Joel A. Erickson, Indianapolis Star, Beer Fairy. We'll get in touch with you and find out about a stout. All right.
Love it. Love it.
Java House Peel and Pour guest line for Joel A. Erickson from the Indianapolis Star. By the way, folks, want to remind you, tonight might be the night. Of course, the weekend is always a good time as well for Chicago's Pizza. If you're talking about getting the family meal deal, 2 medium, 1 topping pizzas, just $25, and that includes a fresh order of breadsticks. And Chicago's Pizza, the very best, not just in pizza, and you know how I talk about there's a story in every slice, and they are great folks that are dedicated to their craft in pizza. Many of the Chicago's Pizzas, when you're talking about owners, it's people that started out there working out as just one of those who's making your pizza or serving your pizza, and they've worked their way up into ownership. And they're always giving back to the community. Chicago's Pizza, very involved in the community. For example, Stop 11 in Arlington location, sponsoring Shop with the Cop. That's coming up on Saturday, December the 14th. That's this Saturday. And 10% of gift card sales going back to Servants Heart of Indy. Most of the Chicago's Pizza locations, 18 of them, are doing similar programs like that and giving back to the community. But keep in mind, the lunch buffet every day from 11 until 1:30 at Chicago's Pizza. And then again, that family meal deal. 2 medium, 1 topping pizzas and a fresh order of breadsticks for just $25. And all of it from a business that started right here in Central Indiana, cares about Central Indiana, and gives back to Central Indiana as well. Find the location nearest you at chicagospizza.com. Which in the moment was the bigger shock to the system when you saw the news as a Colts fan? Jeff Saturday being hired as coach in 2022 or Phillip Rivers as your quarterback this year in 2025? So far, Saturday leading in that discussion, or leading the survey, I should say. JMV has arrived. It is the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, love-hvac.com.
The last time
The
in this
website.
building, buddy.
317-353-2141. It is indeed, is it not?
It did. Well, that's what they say.
And I saw it, by the way, and just not that anyone probably needs to know, but for the sake of clarity or transparency, I did see, there was a column or an article about the fact that we are moving locations.
Was that the David Lindquist?
Correct.
Yeah.
So he had written about the fact that we are moving from this building where this radio station, long before I was here,
Right.
although I was here with WIBC years ago, 40 Monument Circle, where we're located, right on Monument Circle. And we are moving to another location, and I saw several people that were convinced that that was a downtown thing or didn't want to be around. The reality is this. I think most people know this by now, but the company that originally owned this radio station, MS Communications, which is where I worked also with WIBC, we were purchased by Radio One, 2.5 years ago or so, and they had an already existing building kind of across from Channel 13, just on the north side of downtown, so basically still downtown. They already had an existing building, but they had to accommodate that for the growth now of all of the radio stations together. So they've been doing that, and Nick Lopez and the team of engineers have been over there working tirelessly. Yep, working hard to get us all ready. So we are now ready to go for that, and so that's the reason why we're making the move. It has nothing to do with
also
anything
because
other
this
than that.
building is awful and stinks, and I'm ready to go.
Well, there's a bit of an issue down in the parking garage right now.
Yeah, good
right?
luck getting to your car.
There was a guy with a boat down there.
It's going to be like get a miner's helmet on and go down there with a little light on the front. Yeah. Good luck with that. No, I'm excited. And what they put together over there, Jake, because I went over earlier today. I made sure I logged on the computers and downloaded a lot of the porn that I had saved here. And I went ahead and put that on all the computers. And you're going to love it over there. Seriously.
Which part?
When they get it done, all of it, the porn and the new studios. But it's right next to the living room, so that'll be a new hangout over there. It'll be, it'd be good. We're going to have a good time over there. I would have a good time at an insurance seminar, but we're going to have a really good time over there. I promise you.
Yeah, it should be fun, and it's going to be, for you more than I. I mean, I don't know that I have any sort of like nostalgic. I certainly understand and respect the history of this building.
My nostalgia ended with this about 3 years ago.
Yeah, I get it, right?
Yeah.
Totally get that. So
yeah, I'm all good. Shout out to them, but see you later.
So the exteriors of where we are in terms of our vision will be different tomorrow, but the sound in terms of what you hear on these radio stations will be the exact same. So we look forward tomorrow to bringing you that. John will bring home one final show from this location on the Circle next, and you've got what loaded up?
Well, I mean, go over there and make sure you log on, and you can check out some of the Amber Lynn pictures I downloaded from 1987.
Thank you. Any Nina Hartley in there?
No, Boomer Esiason on the show a little bit later on. We'll talk about, obviously, Phillip Rivers here and moving forward. Chad Brown, the former linebacker, also covers the Seahawks. We'll talk to him. He was also doing the Big Ten title game with IU and Ohio State. I think Bowen's going to be on here. He's been out there all day, too. So a busy show in our last show here in this building. I do want to give a shout-out to everybody because it's been a great 15 years in this building, but it is cool. You're going to absolutely love it. I know those guys are working tirelessly to put this together. I'm very excited about the finished product. It's not going to be tomorrow, but here relatively soon, Jake, it's going to be a finished product, or we're going to dig it.
All right, so JMV will be up next at 3 o'clock, and he will carry you home for the remainder of the day. I thank you for listening to Query & Company.